Hunter Henry of the LA Chargers, and you're listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast.
Hey, we're rolling. We drive all game long. Stay tuned, man. We got something special for y'all today.
You're listening to the Full 10 Yards podcast.
To the 10, right to the 5, scooting in for the score. Touchdown.
Yeah!
Yes, welcome in, one and all. This is the Full 10 Yards podcast. I really love that intro. That countdown. That's so nice. Just gets me in the mood. Even after last night's atrocities, but we'll get to them in a minute. Super Bowl is all done and dusted. We now have 7 months of hibernation in terms of action on the NFL field. But we're going to break down a recap of all the action from the last 60 minutes of the NFL season, and we're also going to have a little snippet into obviously some awards the night previous, and talk about those results and any contention there. But let's welcome in the boys into the huddle. Mr. Sean Blundell, someone who enjoyed the game last night, mainly because of the appreciation for the Tampa Bay defense. But Sean, I know you're tired this evening. You're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, that's the one disadvantage of having a new job, my friend. I can pay for my mortgage, but unfortunately I can't book any time off at the moment because I'm on training. So, swings and roundabouts, I suppose. But, good game. Certainly a dominant display, which we'll get to. And, like you say, for slightly quirky reasons, I quite enjoyed it, to be fair. I thought it was a good watch.
Yeah, talking of new jobs, there is, I don't know if there'll be a vacancy at the tackle position for the Kansas City Chiefs, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. Kieran, whilst you're used to watching, obviously, Patriots in the last week of the NFL season, watching Brady to Gronk for 6 times for however many 60-odd yards and 2 touchdowns, it just brought the Patriots feel to the game, didn't it?
Oh, it was pain. That's all I could feel last night watching those two link up. Absolute pain.
And obviously, Lawrence, you are a big fan of obviously the retro side of things, the historic side of things. So there's obviously plenty for you to salivate over, and no doubt in a couple of years' time, or decade or 2 decades, years' time, you'll gladly look back on the legacy that Tom Brady has, his footprint that he's left on the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. We were having the GOAT debate the other week, and just saying off air to Kieran that, yeah, I have to relent now. To be the first quarterback to win a Super Bowl for 2 different conferences is just something that has never been achieved before. We will, and no doubt Kieran will kind of, need to be restrained from doing this podcast when we do a complete Brady podcast where we just talk about all of his feats, and it will probably be a 2-hour special. So yeah, unbelievable. Just one little shout out to a guy who we haven't spoken about for about a month, which Kieran has just reminded me kind of when we were in the chat beforehand, and that's Taylor Heinicke, who actually had a better performance against that Bucs defense in the wild card round than Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl. Heinicke went for over 300 yards and 40 yards on the ground, and he threw a touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown. So I won't say any more, but yeah, just extending a little bit of late season love for Taylor Heinicke.
Well, absolutely. Any Washington related, and not surprised. But just before we get into the crux of the game, then obviously the first time Mahomes has lost by double digits, and the Chiefs scored 9 points, ladies and gentlemen. 9 points. Since when do you ever say that about the Kansas City Chiefs? You didn't even score a touchdown. But anyway, how do we just get a quick roundtable? Obviously, it's a bit weird watching it at home. I assume everyone was at home watching it this year, and obviously you can't have any Super Bowl parties unless you wanted to find and all the rest of it. But was it weird, Sean, watching it in your own home? Was it just you? Were there any family members?
No, only the family members. I was trying to make sure I didn't wake up, mate, all tucked up in bed. Not really much change for me. That's what you get from having an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. I've kind of had to adjust to that over the last few years, but fingers crossed, mate, next year we can get together and have a good old party watching it. I was certainly very jealous of all of the food boxes. Hickory's certainly did themselves a nice bit of trade this weekend by the looks of it in the NFL UK community.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone that is watching, anyone who wants to put in the comments box wherever you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, let us know. You know, was it weird for you watching it on your own, or did you watch it with your family? Obviously, no one could go out, so anything that you learned about yourself watching it at home rather than going out and getting pissed, go and hit us in the comments, and we'll post some of those. But Kieran, obviously, you're out in the States, so things are a bit, I guess, a bit different than it is over here in the UK. What do you normally do when you watch the Super Bowl? Do you normally go out to bars? I know you've given us some anecdotes about the previous Falcons and Patriots stories, which you won't replicate now. That's obviously for the off season. But is it any different for you watching out in the States than it is over here?
There's more places you can watch it out here, of course, especially just due to timing. But stayed home this year, stayed responsible, and I discovered that Crayola doesn't only make crayons; they also make sweets. That was what I discovered this Super Bowl.
There you go. Crayola also makes sweets. And Lawrence, obviously, you've mentioned a couple of times that it was your 35th Super Bowl that you've watched. Obviously, it's not going to rank up there in terms of spectacles and action and tenseness as it gets into the fourth quarter. But anything differently you've done this year to previous years?
Well, for probably about the first 25 years, I had a very, very set ritual. I'd get a bag of normal M&Ms, a bag of peanut M&Ms, and what was a marathon. So you guys are that young that you won't remember when a Snickers bar was called a marathon. But back in the day,
how old do you think I am? I'm not 22.
So back in the day, my first ever Super Bowl that I watched, Super Bowl 21, back in 1987, I had a tray. And I put the M&Ms all around the edge of the tray, and I had my one normal. It wasn't even king size. There wasn't even king size back then. Normal Snickers bar. Cut it up into little slices like a loaf of bread. I had a can of Pepsi because obviously I wasn't of a drinking age, and that was my ritual that lasted a long time. And then eventually I've given up pop, given up chocolate, and this year I've actually given up bread and crisps. So I'm really trying. So my tradition this year, I've started a new one. I had a bag of marshmallows, a bag of popcorn, and then at halftime I just had a strong black coffee, and that was it. Other than that, it was water. So nothing too exciting. But it was, the one thing that I do, which I don't even tell my wife, is I get my my armchair and kind of move it all the way across the living room and stick it dead in front of the TV, so I'm like 1 inch away from the TV, and then I have to move it all back as if nothing's happened before I fall asleep on the sofa. So yeah, it was a funny game. I actually preferred this Super Bowl to the last one because I just admired that defensive performance, and the Buccaneers just never broke. They never broke, and that interception at the end, I think that brings the legacy absolutely to life for this 2020 Buccaneers team, that they didn't concede a touchdown. They did a step better than their 2003 predecessors, who they absolutely kicked the Raiders' ass, but they allowed 21 points. So let's just admire what an achievement this is. And the Bucs are now 2-0 in Super Bowls. So it's not all about Tom Brady. We need to bring this back to the team, and I think we need to celebrate the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then everybody after that.
Yeah, and I say that we'll get into maybe the reasons why the Bucs defense were so frigid, and some of the reasons for that. And I also read a stat somewhere that Jason Pierre-Paul was 8-0 in playoff games, which is quite astonishing to be quite honest. 8-0 in postseason games. I mean, that's not the worst record to have, is it? So we'll get to that surely. But Sean, there were some other reasons before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kind of shut down. I had Tim ate half of Aldi. I did dirty fries in Aldi. Didn't quite agree with me whilst I was watching them, but there we go. Obviously first half, Sean, before the second half, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did kind of shut up shop and say did not let them into the end zone in terms of scoring a touchdown. The Kansas City Chiefs kind of shot themselves in the foot for quite a number of plays in the first half with penalties, obviously leading to Bucks points and extending drives for Tampa Bay. Do you want to maybe just talk us through kind of how the first half went for Kansas City and how it kind of, even from the outset, wasn't looking good in terms of prospects of winning their back-to-back Super Bowls?
Yeah, I think everything that could have gone wrong pretty much did, didn't it? Let's be completely honest. I think, the tone was set really from the first drive of the game. You had Mahomes scrambling on a couple of design pass plays where nobody was open and he bailed out to the left-hand side on both of those occasions. That actually ended up leading to a 49-yard field goal. And that, little did we know at the time, that was the only time that the Chiefs actually held a lead in this game. It was just a challenge the whole game for them. And we'll get on to the second half and some of the Chiefs' offensive struggles in a little bit. But in terms of the penalties, it was just so un-Andy Reid team-like, wasn't it? Just a complete lack of discipline. Lots and lots of chatter after plays, people getting involved in things that they didn't need to get involved in. Lots of finger wagging and pointing, and ultimately, I think, let's face it, the Bucs really just dished it out to them, and Kansas City just really didn't like it. Was there some questionable calls? Look, let's be honest. You could make an argument in terms of some of the holding calls. Would they have been called the other way around? Have they been called the other way around? Ultimately, by the letter of the law, was it a reasonable call? I would say from the replays that I've seen on the crucial holding call, I would say that it probably was. The pass interference one, I think the one in the back of the end zone, is that ball catchable? I'd probably say no, it wasn't. I think it was debatable that it was pass interference anyway. It could have certainly been illegal contact down the field, but that obviously would have been a yardage penalty as opposed to a spot foul. And then obviously you had the big one right at the end of the half after the Chiefs had tried to get a little bit aggressive, tried to get Patrick Mahomes the ball back and tried to get some sort of momentum going into the second half. They were trailing by 8 points at that stage, had the Bucs at a 3rd and 2 situation, about 45 seconds there or thereabouts on the game clock, and they opted to take a timeout, which obviously hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it? But that obviously allowed the Bucs to convert that, and lo and behold, a couple of penalties later, and the Bucs cash in with a further 7 points before the half. At 7-3, the Chiefs restricted Tampa Bay to a field goal, but then one of the linemen lined up off sides. It was just an absolute disaster. And look, you saw it all over Twitter last night. Because it's Tom Brady, there was a load of people out there, the refs are in his pocket as usual. And I'm sorry, it's just a lazy take. The Chiefs were their own worst enemy yesterday. They've been a little bit handsy throughout the postseason and have gotten away with it. Doesn't mean two wrongs make a right. You could argue that they got away with some calls in earlier rounds that they shouldn't have got away with. I'm obviously thinking of one in particular, and we all know which one that is, but I'm not bitter at all, so we'll quickly move on from that. For me, the best team, well, look, we're talking specifically the first half and the Kansas City penalties here. The best team in the first half, the most physical team in the first half, were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Chiefs couldn't handle it. They lost the discipline, and ultimately they paid the price because of that. I don't think they can have too many complaints about most of the calls, if I'm being completely honest. I thought they were all really warranted, potentially, like I say, with the Mike Evans PI in the back of the end zone, the only one, but I still think it was a penalty. It was just the wrong penalty that was called. I still ultimately think that the Bucs were getting some yardage and the clock stoppage and all the rest of it, and it probably would have just meant Brady to Antonio Brown from 4 yards instead of from 1 yard. I think ultimately it probably didn't change anything in the grand scheme of things, mate.
I agree, and I'm not saying for one instance that the rest were the reason the Chiefs lost this game. They lost because they were awful, and the Bucs were by far the better team. They couldn't even, the Chiefs didn't even score a touchdown in the game, regardless of penalties. Penalties are mainly on the defense. So defense is I know they scored touchdowns, but they don't score touchdowns if you know what I mean. But it was a 22-point game at the end of the day, and even if the calls that were made, and I'll come to them shortly, it still would have been a double-digit loss by the Chiefs. I just think that there's a sequence of events, in the back of the end of the second quarter, where it all started with that Tommy Townsend punt, didn't it? He had hit an absolute beamer, but then there was a holding call. Then they retake the punt, and it only goes 29 yards. And then the next drive, Brady has an interception call back on I would say that's it was a questionable holding call personally. So that interception possibly could have stood. And then even, like I say, on the suck-up made field goal, is it Mecole Hardman or Hamilton or whatever his name was again, I think the issue that the people are having is in a season where they've let everything go, or they've let them play, especially in the postseason, to then rack up the yardage in penalties. The Kansas City Chiefs had the most penalty yardage in the first half of a game all season long. I can't recall how much it was, but I know it was by far the most in any game called this season. So I think that's where a bit of beef is. I agree that most of them normally will be called, and you can't argue with them. And Tony Romo, despite his best efforts, just says that they're penalties. It's just the issue that they haven't really been calling them as much as they have done in previous years. Like I say, the suck up made field goal that then converted into a first down. The next play, Gronk touchdown, and you kind of felt that was it. That was 14-3, and like I say, that was already enough points for the Bucs. But the timeouts prior to halftime, I think once Andy Reid made the first call on after the first down, after Fournette rushed for 0 yards, he's kind of committed anyway, to use a poker term. And then, like I say, it was kind of game over after that. But Kieran, another main reason why the Chiefs weren't able to come back in the second half was that defensive line of Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh. JPP had a great game, and Shaq Barrett had a great game as well. They just didn't let. It was kind of like watching the second Lord of the Rings, the attack on Isengard, wasn't it? With the orcs all lining up on the wall, getting through to Brady, but literally Mahomes was running for his life.
Yeah, the interesting stat is he actually covered over 500 yards before he got a ball out or got sacked last night, which is, those stats are only normally reserved for punt returners when they're zigging and zagging. But yeah, it was crazy, and the Bucs did what I was screaming at the Browns to do and screaming at the Bills to do when they played the Chiefs. Just send at least four, because then you can cover the middle of the field and you can cover the seams. They did it perfectly. Sometimes they sent 5. Patrick, look, I'm not going to crap all over this offensive line. They were missing 2 key pieces. 2 of their best starters are out, and that definitely hurt them. But Bucs, man, they just played a perfect game defensively. They gave up a penalty, which I thought was just, I'm all for shithousery. So when Antron Winfield Jr. found Tyreek Hill, got right in his face, that's the best penalty you could give up. That was fantastic. I loved that because I hate Tyreek Hill. So seeing him, get clowned on a little bit was just perfect for me. But yeah, this Bucs defensive line is scary. Vita Vea come in at fullback, which really just showed how much power he has. 350 pounds of absolute. Was he from Hawaii? I don't know. He looks like Moana, and he runs dudes over. It's fantastic to watch him last night on that. He's a great nose tackle, and then you have Ndamukong Suh, who, kind of on the end of his career. But if you're a college football fan, you remember what he did. He almost won a Heisman as a defensive tackle. Do you know how crazy you've got to be and dominant at that position to be in the Heisman debate? So yeah, they just absolutely. Look, Patrick Mahomes looked like he was scared after those first few drives they had, and they were just barreling down on him, play after play after play. That's why I feel sorry for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Poor guy's 5'1" or whatever he is, 200 pounds, and he had to run into monsters every single play. But they didn't have the linemen; they couldn't get the gaps up for him. They just could not hold the Bucs. They were just Patrick Mahomes was scared. Like you saw, as a play late in the game, he got driven face down into the turf, and he come up with turf in his helmet. He looked like Tony Romo, and he looked no shade on Tony Romo, but there's a very famous play of Tony Romo digging turf out of his helmet. So yeah, you can't, as good as Patrick Mahomes was, and look, I'm all for ribbing on the guy, but he had the most impressive throw last night. It wasn't caught, but it was a very impressive throw. Because as you know, I teach mechanics and not car mechanics. I mean quarterback mechanics. The first thing I teach is footwork. So when he throws a bomb with no feet, come on, man, it was ridiculous. So yeah, just that people. I've been saying this all season. I have told you guys every single game of the season: send 4, leave everyone else in coverage.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point. I say, and I managed to find some stats on. Obviously, the Todd Bowles defense is one that does like to bring pressure, and obviously Todd Bowles didn't do it as much in this one. He didn't do it in the game in the regular season either. But he only sent 6 blitzes out of 61 defensive plays, which is what 10%, and then 3 of them were on third down. And half of the blitzes, so 3 of the blitzes were actually in the first quarter. And like I say, you just saw Mahomes running for his life. You say 500 yards running, pirouetting. You know, it's kind of like watching Strictly Come Dancing. I thought Jason Bell was out there, but you know, for the Bucks defense to generate over half of Patrick Mahomes' snaps, generating pressure, and obviously he had his limp returned and his foot obviously was under a lot of duress. But you know, the Bucks defense didn't allow a big play. They had 2 deep safeties, and you know, the broadcasting team were quite annoyingly just keep bringing it up every play and saying how far back that the safeties were. And like I say, if you can get pressure with just 4, it allows you to bracket Kelsey. It allows you to keep Kelsey under the middle and can't go any deep routes, and it allows you to bracket Kelsey to his paltry returns that he had. But Lawrence, any other moments for you that were key to the game?
Yeah, tons, absolutely tons. I think Carlton Davis, the redemption story, is one we haven't spoken about. After getting murdered in front of a live audience, to then restrict Tyreek Hill to next to nothing. You know, we talk about Winfield trolling him, which was a classic moment. But what Carlton Davis managed to do throughout that game in terms of restricting Hill was just incredible stuff. And let's just talk about the Buccaneers running game. This is, you know, we're in an era now where it's the kind of the conventional thing in a Super Bowl is that quarterback goes 300 yards plus, and the kind of the running game's a little bit secondary. But I had 2 kind of $10 lineups in DraftKings, and Leonard Fournette was my captain in one of them. And I thought this was going to start to pay off, but unfortunately I didn't have Gronk in any of my slots, so that screwed my teams. But that running game, I think, was needed. It was a case that everybody had to do their jobs. Everybody had to contribute. If you look at Brady's actual stats, aside from the 3 touchdowns, he only just scraped over 200 yards. So he was relying on that running game. And Fournette, again, 4 catches. And all 4 of those catches were critical catches that maintained drives. And then, yet again, Fournette's touchdown matched the kind of the NFC Championship touchdown in terms of kind of impact that it had. And if only that play would have been snapped from inside the 10, and you could have seen Fournette rumbling for like a 85-yard touchdown, because no one was going to catch him. It's one of those plays where there was just no one there. The blocking was just incredible. And another storyline for me, Tristan Wirfs, rookie offensive tackle. You know, you don't often get, you look at the kind of history of, like, you know, early drafted tackles. Quite a lot of them either go on to injured reserve, or they don't have any impact as a rookie. And they're kind of, you know, they don't mature quick enough. Tristan Wirfs has been relied on, and Tom Brady must have a lot of faith in Tristan Wirfs in terms of that running game, in terms of him blocking. So again, another big storyline there. We could go on. I mean, I think we're going to come on to kind of MVPs and stuff like that. So I'll save kind of a bit of the conversation there. But yeah, just incredible team performance. I really, really appreciated watching this, and it felt like a legacy Super Bowl, and I really enjoyed that. Kind of, I was left with a bit of a weird taste in my mouth after the last Super Bowl, because essentially the Chiefs didn't play brilliantly for that game. They just played brilliantly for 6 minutes. In this game, the Buccaneers, aside from the very first drive of the game, that was it. Other than that, they executed for 58 minutes.
One thing I would do want to point out, just with obviously we had Super Bowl Lenny and playoff Lenny, or whatever kind of Lenny you want to call him. But I was saying to Sean a couple of hours ago that I think you have to question Andy Reid's play calling a little bit. The first couple of drives wasn't a run to be seen all over anywhere. They just seemed to just forget that they had a run game. And if you look at like Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's stats, they actually ran the ball pretty well. And I'm no offensive line coach, or I'm no offensive coordinator, but it's a lot easier for an offensive lineman to block or to do what they're required to do when they are in run blocking, because they are the aggressor. They are going forward. It's so much harder for when someone's coming at you to pass protect, because you're being reactive. You're not being the aggressor. You're not being proactive. And like I say, when they ran the ball, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 6, 7, 8 yards per carry on however many carries he had. The Chiefs had
7.2 yards per carry.
Yeah, the Chiefs had got decent yardage when they ran the ball, and the scripted plays, whatever they had. So I was a bit surprised. I know they opened up 3 pass plays, but it's almost as if they kind of like, oh, we know the Bucs are going to stuff us on the ground, so let's not bother trying. Unless we'll do the adage of we'll use the pass to set up the run, when it's usually the other way around to set up play action. But I was just a bit surprised that, considering the success they did have, and however good the Bucs defense is, there were gaping holes there. Kieran, obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a big LSU person. So obviously, you've been singing his praises all year long. What are your thoughts?
They used him properly, because I said at the beginning of the season, Clyde is not a downhill runner. He's never been that guy. He hasn't got downhill speed. But last night, they used him perfectly. They ran him on gap plays, which is where you utilize his explosiveness. That's what he's good at, his lateral movement and his explosive hips and his low center of gravity. That's how he operates. And last night, the Chiefs said, okay, let's run him on gap plays. And look what it got him. I know it didn't get him a win, but it got 7.2 yards per carry. And they could have ran with that a little bit more, because every time they ran him on a gap play, he got wide open. He darted to the left or the right quicker than most guys can run forward, and exposed the holes. And the only problem the Chiefs had was the Bucs. The linebackers would come in and seal gaps very, very quickly. So he could get 5, 6, sometimes 10 yards on a play, but the Bucs were coming in and sealing gaps very quickly, which is, funnily enough, what the Chiefs what the Bucs offensive line was able to. Fournette played like he played at LSU. He was just running into dudes. Like he could have open space, but he'll still find a dude to hit. But the Bucs weren't sealing those gaps as well as they could moving on to the second level. But that's what the Chiefs, they said, hey, he's good at gap plays. Let's do it. They did it in the first game of the season and the last game of the season. And they kind of hadn't utilized him properly a lot through the rest of the season. They've been putting him on like stretches and power form runs and stuff. So I think if they just used him a lot more, they would have got a lot more yards and picked up a lot bigger first downs.
It was a strange one, I think, that they didn't. I don't know why they just completely abandoned giving Darrell Williams the ball, because Darrell Williams, we know he's not a superstar, but he's performed well when he's been given the ball, and he can catch out the backfield. And what does he end up with? Two rushes for 5 yards, and the Chiefs' running game, aside from Patrick Mahomes taking those first downs when they were available. And I don't think he wanted to run at all in the game. It's not like you're game planning him in to run. It's just, is there a window there? Is he going to get a first down and keep a drive going by darting out for 8 yards and go to the sideline and avoid getting hit? Yeah, and I think he did that 3 or 4 times. But that Chiefs running game, only 11 carries for their running backs in the entire game. 11 carries. That just doesn't win you games. We all know that.
Yeah. Look how productive Clyde was with 9 carries. That's ridiculous.
Talking of Patrick Mahomes running, do you know what he reminded me of when he was running? You know when you go to the beach and you take your shoes and socks off and you run down to the water but you've got you've still got to negotiate all the stones and the shingle as you get to this. That was just my moment, yeah. But yeah, just a point on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There was a really good play where it showed him his quick sidestep and the right tackle whiffed on. I don't know if two people were coming or if he didn't pick up the guy further to his right, but he just made. I think it was Levante David or Pierre Paul or someone. I think it's Levante David, but just sidestep to the right and then away you go. With Clyde, which was really nice as well. But again, I don't know why they got away from the run. So obviously, all done and dusted. Tom Brady wins, and again, it's kind of a game like we've mentioned. It wasn't a game where Brady got a lot of yardage. It wasn't a game where you heard Mike Evans' name called very often. Chris Godwin's name wasn't heard very often. Obviously, it was six of his throws receptions went to Gronkowski. But Kieran obviously is someone that's used to seeing Brady take the MVP, not necessarily when he's always deserved it in the Super Bowls. Do you think he was deserving of MVP in this one? And obviously, just his performances as a Tampa Bay, it is difficult to transition to a new team especially when you've been institutionalized in New England. But he's, and I know the defense has played a big part, but he's beaten Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes in the playoffs. Firstly, was he deserving of the MVP award, and what do you make of obviously how he's gone about his business in Tampa Bay?
All I'm going to say about the MVP award is that it deserved to go to Devin White. He was by far the most productive and the scariest player on the field last night. Yeah, he was out of position, but, I'm an LSU fan. I saw him coming in as a running back out of high school, and I saw him transition to a linebacker. And I said it last night in about 10 different group chats. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. If he continues playing like he is, he will go down as one of the greatest linebackers to ever play in this league. I do not doubt that. And that's not even LSU bias, but the way he played last night was phenomenal. I hope Brady buys a new horse to make up for the fact that he didn't get the MVP award. I will give credit to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had the latest bye week. They did not have a bye week until week 13. And you could see very early on in the season, Brady was finding it very tough to adjust to this system. We know every first year a quarterback has with Bruce Arians, they are not as productive. They throw more picks, and things can generally be a bit of a problem. So all credit to him. But after what week did they play the Kansas City Chiefs?
12, yeah.
Didn't lose after that. After Tyreek Hill gave him this, didn't take a loss. I think that really motivated him. We talk about all these things that happen in football and the storylines that play out, but things like that can really give a team a kick in the ass. And I think it did for the Bucs. They said, you know what? We've got a shot at winning this thing. Let's go win it. And yeah, the Bucs have been phenomenal all season. Like I said, Brady is 43. He has been in this game a long, long time. Patrick Mahomes was 6 when Brady was playing in his first Super Bowl. That's how old this geezer is. And a geezer in America actually means old man. So I can just throw that out there. The American fans will get it. The British fans know too. I think at this point, you've got to have him as the most successful athlete of all time. Even over Michael Jordan. He's going to, transcend the game almost. And say what you want about refs calls and performances. When he gets to the big game, he performs. Even when he lost to the Eagles, he threw over 500 yards and broke a Super Bowl record. The guy just shows out time and time again. And the fact that he's done it in a new system, come on, man.
One thing I will say, just on Tom Brady, he's a really good Twitter follower. His Twitter game's pretty strong. I'm loving his Twitter game. He tweeted Tyreek Hill earlier and said something about when he was saying, "Oh, why can't we get to 7?" Then Tom Brady tweeted that, and he said the same thing. That's quite funny. But yeah, obviously on the other side, Sean, obviously Patrick Mahomes, obviously it wasn't to be for him. Obviously hobbled, and some of the plays he made. And we mentioned one of the best throws, one of the best incomplete passes you'll ever see. Kind of sideways, kind of like a Madden glitch, wasn't it? Throwing it, just the accuracy, absolutely phenomenal. But you have to feel that Mahomes turned up. Mahomes couldn't have done any more. How good was Mahomes? And what will he take enough positives from this game, if any? Because it's going to sting. Obviously, a 22-point defeat for a person that's not experienced a defeat like that since college. To give us your views on Patrick Mahomes in this game.
Yeah, I thought he was sensational. I've got to be honest. I disagreed with what Kieran was saying earlier about him being scared. I thought he was almost too fearless for his own good. I mean, I was actually sort of sitting there at points with 7-8 minutes left thinking, if I'm Andy Reid, I'm pulling him out of this game. He was just getting absolutely battered, and he kept getting back up, and he kept trying, like you say, to scramble 500 yards before throwing balls just tells you all that you need to know. And I think that the reason that Devin White didn't get the MVP award, I think, is that it was so difficult to pinpoint any one individual player on that Bucs defense. Some of the guys won't show up in the stat sheet, but they made Patrick Mahomes run around for 25 yards before tossing an incompletion. That doesn't show as a stat, but Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, Shaq Barrett, JPP, those four in particular, they were the four that were coming all game long. And Mahomes didn't whiff. He didn't shirk any responsibility. He was let down by some drops, which were uncharacteristic. I mean, that pass that, you talk about, the one that he was flying through the air, it actually hits, I think it was Demarcus Robinson square in the helmet. If he catches that, it's a touchdown. I mean, I don't think it fundamentally changed anything. I think it was too late in the day by then, but, that should have been a touchdown. He had a similar play in the first quarter without the theatrics in terms of him flying through the air, which was a similar incident that it hit the face mask of Tyreek Hill, which, again, if he comes down with that one, we're potentially talking a different ball game. But everything was difficult for the Chiefs yesterday. Everything was difficult. And as brilliant as Patrick Mahomes is, and as brilliant as Tom Brady is, and as brilliant as any quarterback in history has been, if you get pressure on them, they're all as vulnerable as each other. It's as simple as that. Nobody's good throwing a ball with somebody in their face. Nobody is good throwing a ball when you're running 15 yards backwards for the line of scrimmage. Some players can do it better than others, and Mahomes, like I say, certainly, left it all out there on the field yesterday. But he was essentially just dealt an impossible hand, and he tried his best with the hand that he was dealt. I agree with everything that you guys said in terms of he could have got more support from a more balanced running game. I think obviously the scoreboard probably dictated that they went away from that. Ironically, it almost felt as though they went to the run a little bit more in the second half in terms of Edwards-Helaire getting some carries, but the game was sort of out of reach by then, unfortunately for them. But he's going to be back. I don't think there's any doubt he's going to be back. Obviously, I think if I was the Kansas City front office, I'd be looking at everything I could possibly do to improve the depth along that offensive line. Yes, obviously the two tackles were missing. But let's be honest, Eric Fisher's hardly been, a superior left tackle. I think he's improved throughout his career, but let's be honest, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about him being an absolute bust. But he certainly improved to become a serviceable tackle. Mitchell Schwartz, I think, has been superb on the right-hand side. But they obviously need depth along that line. They were so vulnerable without them yesterday. And it's one thing having the speed and the opportunity to take the top off the defence and having the quarterback with the arm strength to throw it there, but those routes take time to develop. And if he hasn't got the time allowed to let those develop, which he didn't have at all yesterday, and as the guys rightly said, Travis Kelce was essentially doubled on every single play that's normally his sort of outlet receiver. I think the blueprint has been set in terms of how you try and defend the Chiefs. The Browns tried to do that, to Kieran's point, in the divisional round, but we just haven't got the players that the Bucs have. We certainly haven't got the speed at the linebacker position that the Bucs have. But Mahomes will be back. I don't think he could have done any more. I thought he left everything that he had out there. Like I say, I actually think he should have actually been protected from himself, to be completely honest. I think there was that one hit where three of them converged on him. One went high, one went low, one hit him in the head, and you just sort of watch that play and wince because the game felt like it was over, to be honest, at half time. It just never felt like the Chiefs were going to come back in this. And I've been the Chiefs' biggest fan, that. And, they normally fall behind double digits and you still think, they'll turn this around because that's just what they do. Just didn't feel that way yesterday. But, look, he'll be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, and like I say, when Travis Kelce is dropping balls, the Kansas City Chiefs are in trouble. But yeah, just to encapsulate, it was a good stat with how ferocious that Bucs defense was, and with Mahomes running for his life. They recorded 29 pressures on Patrick Mahomes, which I said is obviously over half the snaps. But he had 25 dropbacks of 10 or more yards. That's unbelievable. To be, even before you even think about throwing the ball, you've dropped back 10 yards, and again, that's like the difference between first and 10 and second and 20. So that's just absolutely incredible performance.
Yeah, and that's why, like I say, mate, that's for me why Devin White didn't get the recognition, because he's the man that had the stats in terms of the tackles and he recorded the late interception. It's the guys that didn't get the stats that actually had the biggest influence on the game. And that's the 4 guys up front. I think they all registered at least half a sack, so they got something in terms of actual statistics. But like you say, you could have chalked up another, well, you just said it there, 29 negative plays, essentially. That's what that front 4 generated yesterday. They were absolutely fabulous.
I talk about Ron Payne every week. I love that guy. And he's just a nose tackle who gets that line to a position where other guys make plays. And that's what was happening last night. You got Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh, just 2 big dudes who can bully linemen, opening it up for everyone else. And, they sort of have that Washington-esque front 4 where everyone's going to get something, even if it's not on the stat sheet.
Yeah, and like Sean said, Mahomes, no doubt. Well, we assume he'll be back. But just a quick roundtable before we move on to some other notes. If you had to pick one of the 2 teams to return to next year's Super Bowl, who are you going for, Sean?
It feels silly to abandon the Chiefs. Like I say, it was a bad night. It was a bad performance. But on the flip side of it, he said he's coming back. Why did we ever doubt Tom Brady? If he's coming back, he's only coming back because he thinks he can win it. If he thinks he can win it, who's going to stop him? So probably the Bucs.
Lawrence?
Yeah, definitely the Bucs. I've got a quick quiz question, a quick one. What do the touchdown scorers in Super Bowl 55 all have in common?
They've all caught touchdowns from Brady and the Patriots.
No, one was a rushing touchdown, remember?
Okay.
What they all have in common is that none of them were on the Buccaneers team
last year,
2019. So it's fascinating, isn't it, that you've got the likes of Levante David, who hadn't been in a playoff game in his entire career, and I think it's his 8th or 9th season, and then you bring over the guy who you think's going to potentially have a meltdown on the 50-yard line at any point in time, Antonio Brown, fascinating guy. Then you've got Leonard Fournette, Reclamation Project, who, is he a locker room issue? Well, turns out no, he isn't. And then Gronk, who was, they said it in the commentary that he was part of a lineup of the 50th anniversary team, or the 100th anniversary team, at the last Super Bowl, just kind of waving in his jeans and t-shirt and doing a bit of WrestleMania. And then, a year later, they're all scoring in the Super Bowl. So I think that the thing that's going to interest me is, are they going to manage to keep all these pieces? Because what normally happens at the end of a Super Bowl is there are people that their status and their kind of whatever it is gets kind of heightened. You look at the likes of Dexter Jackson, who was the previous Super Bowl MVP. He went on to do nothing in his career after having an incredible game with the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. So, it's, can they keep all those pieces together? If Brady's coming back, then people are going to just simply want to be on that team. So, yeah, I think the Buccaneers are in a great position to do this. They've got a sensible amount of draft picks, so they can do things. And if you're continuing to pick up people like Tristan Wirfs to go along with all of these veterans and these projects, and you've got Bruce Arians, who is just kind of, nobody's got a bad word to say about him. Not anybody's got a bad word to say about him. And then there he is, being interviewed at the end of the Super Bowl on the podium, and he just goes, "It's got nothing to do with me." It's kind of, I've had nothing to do with this. Of course he has. But the way he's just kind of self-deprecating and just said it's my assistant coaches, it's Todd Bowles, it's Byron Leftwich, it's the players, just is going to endear himself even more to those players, and they're just going to be desperate to want to repeat. And again, we haven't talked about it, but yet again we carry on. We're almost coming up to 20 years now where no team has repeated, and the Chiefs now have two quarterbacks that have both been to 2 Super Bowls and are both 1-1. Len Dawson and Patrick Mahomes now are 1-1 in Super Bowls, whereas the Buccaneers have a big 0 in the loss column in terms of Super Bowls. So,
he's worth pointing out. Every bullet that they acquired to put into their chamber was pretty much golden gun stuff, wasn't it, in GoldenEye? But it'd be interesting to see how many they keep, because let's say the Patriots have been notorious for people trying to pick apart their teams, their Super Bowl winning teams. You think about not just coaches but players as well. But that's one for the off season. But Kieran, obviously, you going Bucks as well, going full sweep?
Yeah, I think next year's Super Bowl will be either Browns or Bills versus the Buccaneers, and I think it will be a way more interesting game.
I could have put money on you saying that, but all right, I'll go contrary. I'll say the Chiefs go back for a third straight, and the Buccaneers somehow find a what's it? Super Bowl hangover is the term I'm looking for. Right, just before we then move on to the end of season awards recap, just any appreciation or any nods that anyone wants to put out there. I'll start off with Sarah Thomas, obviously the down judge, making history, the first woman to officiate, obviously as part of the Super Bowl crew. Obviously, inspiration and the story is great, and it's good that I think there was a couple of coaches for the Buccaneers as well that were a part of obviously a winning team. So it's good to see. I know it kind of goes against being stigmatized because we are mentioning it, but again, it's forward progress that we're making. And again, we mentioned it on the quiz last week, or Hannah mentioned it, saying hopefully one day it won't be a story that it is, but at the moment it still is. So just an appreciation to Sarah Thomas, who down judge, whilst obviously it's not a head ref. Maybe one day we will have a head official, and you say we're going in the right direction. So sure, anyone want to say any appreciation for anyone in particular
from the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
I was actually going to say the head ref, but this is for all the virgins who keep commenting she belongs in the kitchen and stuff like that. We don't need that in this sport. You're the guys holding the sport back, and you're the reason a lot of NFL fans have a bad reputation. This sport is for everyone, and I applaud females getting involved in the game, in coaching, in refereeing, and even Sarah Fuller down in Vanderbilt kicking field goals and stuff like that. We need more women in this game. This can't just be a male-orientated sport. It might be males on the field, but this game is for everyone to enjoy. Shout out to people like Nia on Twitter as well. I don't know what her Twitter handle is offhand, but she's another person really pushing for more women to enjoy this game, and that's what should be happening. If the same people who are opposed to women in the game are the same people who are angry that black people were playing quarterback 30 years ago. So big shout out to that female ref coming in. We need more women in this game.
NFL Nia. NFL with Nia is the Twitter handle for Nia. Yeah, very much recommend you follow. You'll see a bit of her, without trying to give away too much, you'll see quite a lot of her during the summer. But yes, eyes peeled on that one. Lawrence?
Just keeping on that female theme. Still haven't given up on that interview with. It will happen. I swear to God, I'm going to make it my off-season mission to do so. Just wanted to give. It's a slightly sideways one, but I just wanted to give a kind of little round of applause to Mark Chapman. I don't know how you guys watch the Super Bowl. Obviously, Kieran, you were watching it on network TV. Tim, Sean, what did you end up watching it on?
Game Pass.
I had a bit of a flick around everything. I'll let you make your point because I want to make a point on the broadcasting myself. So you make your point on Chappers, mate.
Okay. Well, I just thought it was great to see Chappers. I know he's kind of he stepped out of the NFL arena, so it's great. I've got total admiration in terms of Mike Carlson. Mike Carlson to me is the GOAT of all commentators that we've ever had in NFL UK history, with Coach Jeff Reinbold a very close second. So it was really great. And Osi and Jason, they're just two fun characters to have. So I did the BBC coverage. I couldn't care less what adverts or what Budweiser have done in terms of their corporate social responsibility. I don't give a damn. So I just enjoyed the BBC coverage, and it's just a shame they don't get more than the Super Bowl. So yeah, shout out to Chappers and the BBC production crew.
Yeah, my point on broadcasting was just I thought everybody did a brilliant job in their own different ways yesterday. I thought it was just an excellent production. I thought Dallas Clark on Sky was absolutely brilliant. He brought a great energy with Cliff Averill in the stadium. Like you said, the BBC coverage was great. I thought the NFL pre-game build-up with Rich Eisen, and obviously a shout-out to Chris Westling, rest in peace, to the mailman. Obviously, sad news coming out over the weekend, but I thought that was really well handled and a touching tribute. And of course, everyone's favourite commentator was on the call yesterday, but he's not my favourite commentator. My favourite commentator, the GOAT of the commentary box, was in the radio broadcast. And boys, this is how you commentate on the biggest play of the Super Bowl.
5:03 to go. Someone has run on the field. Some guy with a bra. And now he's not being chased. He's running down the middle of the 40. Arms in the air in a victory salute. He's pulling down his pants. Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants. He's being chased to the 30. He breaks a tackle from a security guard. The 20, down the middle, the 10, the 5. He slides at the 1, and they converge on him at the goal line. Pull up your pants, take off the bra, and be a man. And the players with hands on hips at the other end of the field are looking at him and shaking their head and saying, why, oh why, is this taking place in a Super Bowl?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
That, ladies and gents, is how you commentate. How Kevin Harlan is not the lead man at CBS, I will never, ever know. I love every time I get to watch a game with Kevin Harlan. He's absolutely fantastic. And that one, obviously the CBS broadcast went to commercial and all the rest of it, but obviously with the joys of someone filming that on Twitter, dubbing Kevin Harlan's radio commentary on top, I just thought that was a brilliant play, fellas. So yeah, as Scott said, even the streaker got in the end zone yesterday.
When I first heard that, and obviously I know it's dubbed over because it's pictures and audio, I thought someone dubbed over it as a joke and as a parody. I didn't realise that was a live call. And then, someone just like took snippets of like loads of different parts of his broadcast and just patched it all together. They're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, because it's common that Kevin Harlan comes out with take that bra off young man in his own NFL commentary, isn't it, Tim?
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, that was certainly a highlight. Did get a few leaps on the old watches. Okay, that's obviously the Super Bowl. That's obviously all the performances and all the shout outs that we want to do. But obviously the day prior, there are a few more shout outs, a bit more formal in terms of shout outs, in terms of the end of season awards recap. So we'll just run through some of these. Obviously, Lawrence, you are our retro guy. Obviously the Hall of Fame inductees, or the people enshrined into the Hall of Fame, obviously were part of the ceremony yesterday. Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, amongst others, were obviously inducted this year. Just a quick minute or two on your thoughts on the people obviously that were inducted. And I saw a couple of videos on how they were informed. Obviously Peyton Manning, I think, was at Denver Stadium and people came out and all the rest of it. But you just maybe want to give a minute or so recap and an honour to those guys that have now become part of your sphere, shall we say?
Yeah, I think we'd touch on Peyton Manning, because I think he's done a great service for the NFL, and he's also done a great service for the military as well, because he actually rented out his forehead as an aircraft carrier. So it's been
with room to spare.
Exactly. Exactly. So we
call them frigate.
If there's ever a third world war, they can just launch all the planes from his forehead. No, seriously, I mean, he deserves it. He's got 2 rings. Fantastic job. Alan Faneca, the guard, ugly kind of position to play, offensive guard. And give the guy some credit for what he's managed to do. He toiled with the Steelers for a long time, won a Super Bowl, and then he went on to the Jets, and he managed to get the Jets to an AFC championship with Mark Sanchez. So if anyone deserves a nod in Canton for getting Mark Sanchez, 60 minutes away from a Super Bowl, it's Alan Faneca. Tom Flores, the previous Oakland Raiders head coach, that was the guy that I wanted the most into the Hall of Fame. Never understood why. He was a winning player. He won a Super Bowl. He was a winning assistant coach and a 2-time Super Bowl winning head coach. But because he sat under the likes of kind of John Madden in terms of personalities and Al Davis in terms of the owner and the kind of the whole thing that was around him, he never got the credit. So great that's due. And I think when he was kind of had the knock on his door, it wasn't one of utter joy. It was more of relief and kind of, you've taken your time. I could see it in his face. It was like, yeah, I'm there now. And it kind of, a bit late. I'm glad I'm still alive that I got it. Calvin Johnson, the Megatron, the only guy to not win a Super Bowl in this year's Hall of Fame class. So well done, Calvin Johnson. John Lynch, the safety, who's now doing an incredible job as a GM in the 49ers, part of that original Tampa Bay legacy. Bill Nunn, not a lot of you would have heard of Bill Nunn, but this was a guy who was a journalist. He was one of the first black newspaper owners back many years ago, back in the 50s and 60s, and he went up to the Pittsburgh Steelers and said, "You are not recruiting from historic black colleges. Why aren't you doing this? There is an incredible lot of talent here." So the Steelers turned around and went, "All right, do you want a job with us?" And he's like, "Yeah, all right, then I'll have a job." What happens? 6 Super Bowls later, he is part of a Pittsburgh Steelers franchise that won 6 Super Bowls. Arguably the greatest single draft in NFL history he was part of, with I think there was 4 Hall of Famers picked in one draft. So incredible job to Bill Nunn. Fortunately, he's passed away, but it's great that we're celebrating his legacy. Drew Pearson, who won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys, the original number 88, as Michael Irvin calls him, and also the guy who is actually known for the first person to catch the first Hail Mary. The Hail Mary is actually named after Drew Pearson. So fantastic job there. And then to top off the class, Charles Woodson, the guy who posed as the Heisman when he was in Michigan and did an incredible job as a cornerback and a returner, and then went on to win a ring. And he broke his arm as he moved from cornerback to safety with the Packers, broke his arm. And that's my abiding memory of him. He's standing there in the second half as Aaron Rodgers was doing an incredible job, and he's there in his sling. So yeah, I remember when Charles Woodson was drafted. So God, I feel old, but fantastic class. Absolutely outstanding class. And it was great that I managed to interview one of the folks that's on that 49-person committee. So if you haven't had a chance, have a listen to my interview with Jason Cole, where we talk about, amongst other things, the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the second part of that, obviously the first part that was put out on Saturday was more Super Bowl related. The other half will be put out next week. I did have a joke about Bill Nunn, saying that I didn't know him and I knew his sister, but it's kind of moved on now. So we'll move on. So just to run through all the other results, MVP was Aaron Rodgers, Offensive Player of the Year Derrick Henry, Defensive Player of the Year Aaron Donald, Comeback Player of the Year Alex Smith. No surprises there. Rookies Chase Young and Justin Herbert got the equivalent for their sides of the ball. And then Coach of the Year Kevin Stefanski, and Assistant Coach of the Year Brian Dable over there in Buffalo. So those are the awards. Again, we can talk about those in the off season if we so desire, but we're rounding out now. Obviously we just ticked over the hour mark. Just some final thoughts, gents. Winner and loser for the NFL season as a whole. I'll start off with a winner and a loser. So my winners, I was going to say Matt LaFleur just purely because of the fact that many people 2 years ago, when they got to the championship game, said they were frauds. So to cement going back to the championship game, I think you have to kind of say they are kind of winners in the sense that it wasn't kind of a fluke. And then losers, Kieran Clavier is, I think, probably New England Patriots, considering what Tom Brady and all the rest of the guys have done in Tampa, but also just the fact that it's the first losing season for 20 years. You kind of have to be a loser because you had a losing record. So, I don't know where Sean's gone. Sean's been and gone.
Steelers were the biggest losers this season, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to steal everyone else's. So, you go give us a winner and give us a loser.
Winner, I'll say Justin Jefferson, just because I know he didn't win Rookie of the Year, and this is going to sting Sean that I say this very quickly. He beat Randy Moss's records. Justin Herbert beat Baker Mayfield's. But yeah, he is the biggest winner of the season. Name me another rookie who's having his roots played as highlights. I'll wait. Probably Ocho Cinco, actually. So the Bengals hat down there. But yeah, biggest loser was the Steelers because they had such a great start and then got absolutely exposed when they played a team that knew what they were doing. So take that into the off-season, Juju. Corvette.
What college was Justin Jefferson?
LSU, my friend.
Yeah, cool. Moving on. Lawrence, winner and a loser?
I'm going to have to level up with the comeback player of the year. I think with Alex Smith, it's just an incredible story. And even though my love for Washington may have diminished, the respect I have for what Alex Smith managed to achieve this season is just phenomenal. And if anyone's seen the ESPN documentary and just seen his leg looks like kind of something that you'd see in the Terminator. So for him to come back, play, and have, I think his record was 5-1 this season before he kind of went a little bit injured for a slightly different reason at the end of the season. So yeah, Alex Smith there, incredible job.
Yeah, I'd say I struggled with the winner for a little bit because I thought Alex Smith's the obvious one, but I did want to steal your thunder there. Sean, give us a winner, give us a loser.
Loser for me, probably tight one between the Eagles and the Texans. I'd probably say the Texans though, because you've gone from 12 months ago being in the playoffs, being 20 odd points up against KC and everything looking rosy in the garden to, here we are 12 months later. What was it? 4-12 record, no draft picks until the third round. Your franchise quarterback once out. I mean, let's face it.
I looked at the odds for next year's Super Bowl. They're the rank outsiders at 200-1. They ain't got a pot to piss in.
Yeah, I'm really, really not surprised. I think from probably would say them in terms of the massive fall from grace. I think, like I said, the Eagles equally bad, and obviously everything that happened there with the quarterback situation. I think in terms of the winners. Rewind the clock back 22, 23 weeks, fellas. We didn't know if we were going to watch a game of football at all this year. I think we have been the biggest winners in all of this throughout this last 22, 23 weeks. It's been a massive escape for all of us. Certainly for me personally, I think I've probably appreciated and enjoyed this season more than any. Certainly speaking on a personal level, and I know Tim, you'll echo these thoughts, loved being able to bring coverage week in, week out, podcasts, articles. Love the fact that we put back into the game in this country, and hopefully you, the fans, recognise that and appreciate that. That's what we do it for. That's what we love. It's not for any personal gain. We know there's a lot of others out there that are putting stuff out there, and we love and support them all. But we desperately want to just put back into the game in this country through the schemes that we run, and massively proud to be a part of it. And just like I say, for me, the biggest winners in all of this have been the NFL fans. I think the league have done a fabulous job to get a full season completed. Let's just keep everything crossed that we get a regular or semi-regular off-season, and 2021 can be even better. Hopefully we get some international games. That would be a massive, massive bonus. And I think football has been the biggest winner, mate, in 2020.
On to the XFL. Throw up the X indeed. Yeah, like I say, obviously season is done now, so we'll have a few bits, obviously, from some takeaways and some bits, obviously recapping and some talking points coming out of the game. That'll be with you this week. And say Lawrence and Kieran has a couple of podcasts as well that I need to edit and stick out. And like I say, Jason Cole's other half of the interview. Look out for that as well. But that's going to do it for today's podcast. Thanks for joining us. Whether it's been just a day, whether it's been the whole season, obviously we appreciate every single comment that's been in the box, not just for today, but all season long. We will continue through the off season. Might take a little bit of a break because we need to kind of just reset and re-go again and see what we need to put out there. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll have competitions, and like I say, we'll be say Kieran and the college guys have some stuff coming up, and we'll be looking forward to the draft as well, which we'll obviously have crossover ties with. But that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll see you again very soon indeed. In the great words of Kevin Cadle, it's a bye bye for now. A bye bye.